Now let's turn our attention to simple interest. Now simple interest is going to be our most basic formula, and you are given formulas. You're allowed to have these with you. So, if you want to print out this sheet, if you haven't picked up the notes packet, or is page 47 of the notes packet, perfectly legit to have all of this ready for you. So simple interest, we've got our formula right there that we're going to use. And as you can kind of see, it's the simplest of all the formulas, kind of how it got its name, simple interest there. So the amount of a loan or the deposit, like the amount that we're starting with, is called the principal. And that's going to be P down here in our formula. So this is how all things work. If we borrow money, let's say I borrow $1,000, when I get done paying it back, I will have paid back more than $1,000. So that difference in the amount that I took out versus how much I paid is called interest. And that's how banks or anybody that's loaning you money, that's how they make their money, is the interest. That's what you're paying them in order to go ahead and give you money now. Now, how much interest you pay is based off of a percent, and this is called the interest rate. Oh my. Let's fill these back in. So that was that interest rate. This was called our interest, and this was the principal. And when we only calculate our interest just on the principal, and that's what we're going to be looking at this first formula in section 5.1, that's when we call it simple interest. We're going to get to when comparing this to other guys in the next section, but that's when we only calculate it based just on our principal and not on anything else, not on things that happen over time. So we've got our variables down here, and they kind of make sense. P stands for principal. R stands for interest rate. Do note you have to change it to a decimal. T is going to be our time. Also note that it's in years. And I is going to be our interest. We're going to get to this other formula down here in just a second. I'll get there. I'll come back to it. So looking at example 6, we want to find the simple interest. And I'm going to know to use this formula whenever I see simple interest. That's how I know this is the formula I'm going to use compared to all those other formulas that were listed on that page 47. So P is going to be my principal. R is my interest rate. I'm going to write that as a decimal, so we move it 2 decimal places or divide by 100. And T is 5. So I'm just going to plug straight in to that formula. I type that in my calculator, and it gives me that much. They're not going to matter too much here. We're going to get to some later, but with money, we're always going to round to 2 decimal places. So you'll see throughout this chapter, I'll be rounding to 2 decimal places. So if I took out $8,250 on a simple interest loan, the bank in this situation I would have to pay them the $8,520 plus $1,402.50. That's the interest amount. That's how much they're going to charge me for being able to take out that loan. All right, let's do another one here. Looking at example 7, this one's slightly different because I'm going to give you the time in months. And remember that time has to be in years. So I have to do a little bit to this one. Again, it's simple interest. So I'm going to use that new formula we introduced. My P is going to be 4,200. My interest rate is going to be 0.0215. Now my time, I can't just plug in 16. I have to divide that by 12 because there are 12 months of the year. For instance, if it had been 24 months, 24 over 12 is 2 years. Now some of these get to be really nasty decimals, so my suggestion is just to leave it as 16 over 12. If you want to reduce it down, that's fine. If it came out nice and pretty, that's also fine. But these that are nasty decimals, you just need to leave them as fractions. So I'm going to plug into our formula. I'm going to type it in exactly the way we have written there. And my answer is 120.40. All right. I want you guys to try example 9 down here then. I'm going to come back to 8, but I'm going to let you guys go ahead and try one on your own. So go ahead and hit pause and try example 9. All right, coming back from that pause, I'm going to have 2,400 times my interest rate times my 2 years, and I'm going to get $72. And I actually, just now looking over it, that doesn't actually answer the question, so I shouldn't have had you guys try that one. Sorry about that. But that's how much the interest is. We'll go back to 8, and you'll see this worked again in another one. But we want to know the value in the account after 2 years. So this is just the interest. And so it had just asked for the interest. I could have stopped there, but this one asked for the value at the end. So I'm going to use that formula that I just highlighted in the red right there. The total amount, or the end amount, is A. That's equal to the principal plus the interest. So I'm going to go and do another step with this one. I'm going to plug in my principal, I already used that once, plus my interest, which was $72, to get my final answer of $24.72. It is okay if you just got down to 72 and stopped. I should have looked and read the problem more carefully and to realize that we had that extra step there. Now, this formula is not on the formula sheet. This is more of a concept that we're actually going to use in other sections as well. So it comes up in more than just this one section for simple interest. So we just need that whole idea that the total amount is always what we start with, the principal, plus the interest. And we're going to keep using that in future assignments as well. Okay, so let's go look back to that example 8 there. We want to find the total amount. So to find the total amount, that's A equals P plus I. Well, I know what P is. P is $12,000, but I don't know what I is. So I am going to use the simple interest formula to figure out what I is. And then I'm going to type that in my calculator to give me $1,500. I'm just going to change colors here a little bit so maybe you can follow along a little bit easier. So the total amount then is going to be equal to that same principal that I started with, plus the interest that I just found in the last example. So $13,500 is actually how much I have to repay. My uncle gave me $12,000, but what I ended up repaying him was $13,500.